Seattle rain did what it always did: blur the edges, polish the glass, make the skyline look like a watercolor someone kept re-wetting. On the 47th floor of Wolf Dynamics, even the air smelled disciplined. White lights, a reception wall of slate and steel, the company's W knife behind the desk like a verdict. Aria Bennett today, answering to Aria Quinn pressed her ID to the scanner and handed a neutral smile to the receptionist. Application, security, interview. 9:30. Room for 7D. Last door on the hall, the receptionist said, already moving on. The guest badge came out warm from the printer. The elevator closed her into chrome and reflection. Company projects scrolled across the small screen: iOversight, secure cloud, M&A platforms. Her pulse ticked with each one. 5 years earlier, a deal named like Cold Iron Wolf Helios had gutted her family's small firm. Partners smiled and signed and left with the bones. Her father, stubborn in all the ways character can be, lost the business in a single winter. She lost the apartment, her spot at school, and the certainty that later meant anything. Today, later, belongs to me, Aria told herself, palm tight on the strap of her bag. Room for 7D was frost glass and fluorescent. Inside stood Maya Quinnell, Relation Wolf's in-house counsel and rumored internal spine for AppSec. Blazer, legal eyes, expression filed to a fine edge. Aria Quinn, Maya said, scanning the resume. Sans. 2 years freelance incident response. A year at a security startup that folded landed like a diagnosis. 30-minute technical, then a live scenario. Sit. Sure. Aria flipped open her laptop. The test lit up. Audit a payment microservice, catch an obfuscated injection, then trace a supply chain, tamper chain. It read like a dare. Good. Her brain dropped into hunt mode. That quiet place where noise collapses and patterns announce themselves. At minute 12, she flagged a double-encoded payload buried in a harmless logging function, exactly the kind of bait used by people who assume defenders will never read the boring parts. In the supply chain task, she followed a 1-byte hash drift through a swapped dependency, an old Helios trick. The label swap that had helped poison her father's client builds. The recognition flared. She doused it and kept going. Maya skimmed the report without moving her face, but her attention sharpened. Fine, she said. Part 2. Active incident. War room. The back door opened onto caffeine and velocity. Video walls stitched together a dashboard sky. Keyboards clattered. Voices called out in clipped color-coded urgency. In the center was a man arranged like a straight-line white shirt. Gray tie, storm gray eyes that didn't flinch. Damien Wolf. The business press had called him a raider. In person, he looked like someone gravity obeyed. Damien took in Aria with a flick, filed her existence, and pointed at a cluster of logs. Someone's pushing a dropper through our internal build pipeline. Not random. The signatures familiar. Maya leaned toward Aria. Station 5. Clone the artifact. Verify hash offline. If you see it, say it on comes. Aria jacked in, pulled the build, and compared signatures. Artifact 1.14. 7 hash matched, but the signing timestamp lagged the TOTP server by 17 seconds. Not an accident. Helios had used insignificant skews to sneak patched poisons into production. She widened the scope, traced a dependency to utils metrics, the janitor package nobody watches. Line 226. Hide nothing to see here. XOR inside a debug. Macro the kind that only runs where you think no one looks. Staging, she unmuted. Station 5. Utils metrics is swapped. Timestamp off by 17 seconds. XOR at 226 beacons from staging. If it reaches prod, it phones home. A breath of silence. Then motion. Freeze, staging pipeline. Roll back, utilize metrics 2. 1.14.6, double quotes, black hole, the beacon domain. Damien's eyes found Arya's screen from across the room like he'd practiced the trick. Root staging, access. Not yet, she said, fingers already building a hotfix. I've got a patch. Need a deploy signature. Maya was behind her, because of course she was. She slid a FIDO key into the port like a magician reveals a card. Use mine. Ship it, enter. The pipeline paused, coughed, and took the right fork. Logs rolled green. The beacon died like someone had twisted the dial on a radio. The war room exhaled a streamer of Good catch. Who's the new kid? Hire yesterday. Damien didn't emote. He said one word, good. But when Arya pulled off her headset, she felt the mental sticky note he'd just placed this, one which mattered more than applause. The incident closed in 18 minutes. People dispersed like the caffeine had appointments. Maya handed Arya a bottle of water. Where'd you learn to sniff a 17-second skew? CTF's Arya said. It was shorter than 5 years of autopsying Helios logs until my eyes stung. Maya squinted, tied off a question, and let it hang. Come with me, small conference room. Recorder on. Legal boilerplate read like a spell. If you pass the final, ready to accept an offer today? Maya asked. Yes, Arya said. It sounded like signing a fresh loan with better math. Maya clicked the recorder off. Damien wants 5 minutes. The 5 minutes lived in a glass corner office overlooking Elliott Bay. The rain turning cranes and ferries into charcoal sketches. Damien shut his laptop and gestured at the chair. No coffee, no thin jokes to warm the room. Miss Quinn, he said, paper name, paper tone. Why did you see 17 seconds? Because it's small enough to ignore, Arya said evenly. And people who drop code last minute hide it in places no one watches. The corner of his mouth ticked acknowledgement, not approval. Which team before this? A startup, she said. We closed. Why? Funding evaporated. Supply chain got hit. Customers left. She recited the obituary she'd filed for herself years ago. Wrong moment? He nodded once. What do you want here? Work worth doing, Arya said. Authority to fix what I can see. No appetite for rocket ship, career inflection, limitless resources. He tossed the brochure language between them. I want the right chair and the responsibility that comes with it. The rest is noise. He adjusted half a degree. He liked concise, unvarnished, unafraid. Maya, the door opened. Maya had been in orbit the whole time. Recommend immediate offer. APSIC incident response. Senior. Staging access. On-call rotation. Hotfix authority. 60-day review. Damien nodded. Drafted. Arya held her smile at HR Seth wattage. Thank you. When can you start? Tomorrow, she said, surprised by how fast the word came. Good, he stood. Meeting over. At the door, his voice dropped a notch. The world runs on things no one watches. You noticed them. Good. Outside. The hallway was the same glass. Grey, rain, but something under her ribs had changed rhythm. The guest badge in her hand, Aria Quinn would read employee tomorrow. Access would open. Pipelines would listen. Logs would tell stories you couldn't publish but could win wars with. She slipped the badge away and touched the tiny USB sewn into her bags lining her sliver of ashes. Helios signature templates. Hoppy hop money trails, and a revenge checklist that read like a prayer somebody had blacked out most of. On her way back, a wall of glass gave her a double of herself, hair pulled back. Eyes steady, the stance of someone who taught her hands not to shake. Far behind, in another pane, Damien's outline crossed a screen, straight as a plumb line. I'm in, she told the reflection. Game on, Maya caught her at the elevator. 9 a.m. for your badge. NDA tonight. Aria lifted a brow. In this building, Maya said, we believe in two things, logs and law. A half smile. Bring a third conscience and you'll make my job easier. The doors sealed. The car hummed down. The metallic smell of motion mixed with the drumbeat of her pulse. Across town, her father rolled white paint over the faded letters of a sign he'd rescued from a storage unit, trying to rename what had been taken. He didn't know his daughter had walked into the headquarters he'd cursed. He didn't know that, starting tomorrow, the small things nobody watches would start talking in that his daughter had already wired a detonator to the truth. If truth was a switch, Aria had her fingers on it. All she needed now was the right flip. Aria's official first day at Wolf Dynamics started the way most days in that tower did, with rain clinging to the glass like static. At 8:58 a.m. she badged in, her new photo staring back from the plastic. The badge weighed more than it should have. It meant she belonged here, now, or at least looked like she did. By 9 o'clock, Damien Wolf had already been through 2 stand-ups, signed off on 3 contracts, and sent her an email with 6 clipped words. War room at 10. Bring your brain. She read it twice, rolled her eyes once, and tucked her laptop under her arm at 10 sharp. She stepped back into the same command center where she'd proved herself yesterday. The screens this time weren't red with alarms, but blue with rows of data. An M and a vault audit. A biotech firm in Tacoma was under review for acquisition. On paper, they were clean. In practice, their cloud logs looked like a haunted house. Baseline doesn't match their SOS reports, an analyst muttered. Either sloppy reporting or somebody's siphoning data. Damien's voice cut through the room. We're not buying a leak. I want the diff before noon. Half the heads turned toward Aria, new girl. Fresh badge. All eyes. Fine. She slid into a terminal and pulled the vendor logs. At first glance, they were ordinary, scattered file reads, midnight backups. But every few days, at precisely 2:17 a.m., there was a burst of activity, dozens of files touched, IPs rotating across cloud regions. The pattern wasn't clever. It was lazy. Somebody's a night owl, Aria said, loud enough for the room. 2:17 a.m. every time. Odd weeks only. A couple analysts chuckled. Damien didn't. He leaned closer to the display, eyes narrowing. What's being pulled? Trial datasets. And one CSV labeled friendly _list. Contacts. Someone guessed? Or a whitelist? Aria's hands flew. The kind you build to make alerts ignore you. The MSP on the line protested innocence. Damien didn't waste time. Cut their access. Rotate the keys. Quarantine until they explain. Compliance hesitated. Damien didn't. Mirror the vault. Senior IR has oversight. That was her cue. A minute later, she was inside the mirror, passing the friendly underscore list metadata. Sure enough, it was a whitelist of IP ranges' open doors, disguised as janitor's keys. Helios had loved this trick. Borrow legitimacy, then walk right through. Aria typed, alerts rebuilt. Keys rotated. Beacon cut by 11:30. The siphon was dead. The MSP was babbling excuses, and Tacoma was breathing again. Damien closed the log view, eyes settling on her like a pin. Lunch, he said. Not a question. The cafeteria looked more like a rooftop bar, panoramic glass, clean wood, the bay stretching out below. Damien ate like he did everything else, efficient, silent, already scanning his mental calendar. You saw Helios's fingerprints in that bucket, he said between bites. No warning, straight to it. Aria's fork paused. I saw arrogance. Same thing, he said. We had partners like that once. Helios. The word escaped too quickly. He didn't look up. Partners, plural. You always talk in aggregates. When it keeps people from suing me. He set down his fork. How's your father? Her breath hitched. Excuse me. You listed him as your emergency contact, Damien said I like to know who gets called if my people drop. Aria gripped her napkin. Alive, stubborn, still painting, still cursing gravity. Good, he said simply. We should have had a grant program years ago. We have one now. If he needs resources, ask Maya. Aria blinked. It wasn't what she expected. Not pity, not charity. Just logistics. Still, the words dug deeper than he knew. Thanks, she said carefully. I'll tell him, do. He glanced at his watch. 2 o'clock Tacoma, post-mortem. Free legal with Maya Fora and debriefing. Don't get bored. I don't. He nodded once. That was the right answer. The afternoon pulsed with Wolf Dynamics rhythm, fast but measured. Finance turned corners like knives. Engineers shuffled sideways with laptops. Legal marched head-on. Aria's staging access got her into almost everything, almost then. She found the archive. A sealed share, labeled M and A, legacy, sealed. Access denied. Only 3 names on the permissions list. Legal, finance, CEO. She didn't push. Not yet. A cat can wait a long time by a mouse hole at 3. Maya sat her down for legal hygiene. The lawyer spoke like she was teaching a weapons class, disguised as ethics. We don't break laws to catch criminals, Maya said. We let them break them, then we document. Chain of custody matters more than heroics. Got it. And if you see anything touching legacy matters. Maya's eyes sharpened. You bring it to me, directly. Legacy, like what? Aria asked, feigning blankness. Like anything that rhymes with Helios. Aria lifted a shoulder. Heard of them? Then you know patience is a better weapon than pride. Maya's stare lingered. Aria didn't blink. 2:17, again by 8 p.m. The floor was nearly empty. Aria stayed, running her own cross. Public filings tied Victor Hale Helios. Capitals smiling vultured to 6 rescue deals that looked like drownings in disguise. His name hummed like a bad chorus in the data. Then her inbox pinged. Archive view granted read only. Scope, Wolf Helio's 20x sponsor, M. Quinher. Pulse jumped. She didn't click right away. Instead, she walked to the windows, breathed in the city lights, and pretended she wasn't holding the match to the tinder of her life. Footsteps approached. Damien's reflection joined hers in the glass, tall and straight, hands in his pockets. "You don't have to keep proving you belong here," he said. "I'm not proving," Arya answered. "I'm working. Good." A pause. "You handled Tacoma. You handled the room. You handled lunch. Lunch is a category now." "It is," he said dryly. "More people fail it than you think." Silence stretched. Comfortable, then sharp. "Why me?" she asked before she could stop herself. "Because you see the small things," he said, "and you don't perform for the big ones." His gaze held hers. "You look at problems like they owe you money." She nearly laughed. "They do," she thought. He turned away first. "Go home, 9 o'clock tomorrow. I don't pay for martyrs." When he was gone, Arya sat down, opened the archive, and let the ghosts unespool dot term sheets. Board minutes. Signature packets. One memo, late December, 5 years ago. Proceed with accelerated close per Hale's recommendation. Revised rider attached. Last edit timestamp, 2:17 a.m. Her jaw locked. She closed the folder, logged out, and typed 3 words into a private note. 2:17, Hale. Seattle rain rattled the glass. Somewhere inside, Damien Wolf thought he'd hired a sharp new analyst. He hadn't realized he'd also let in the girl with a detonator sewn into her. Coat, cat, mouse, hunter, prey. The game had begun. The morning after the archive, Arya woke before her alarm. Not out of discipline, out of velocity. Her brain had been running ever since she saw that 2:17 a.m. TIM-STAMP. By the time she reached Wolf Tower, the Seattle sky was pale and damp, the streets steaming like the city was exhaling. She badged in at 8:55. By 9:01, she was already in the war room. Screens glowing against tired faces. Today's fire wasn't external. It was internal. Telemetry from our R&D branch shows anomalous outbound traffic, an analyst said. Encrypted. Legitimate SAT. But volume's wrong. Damien stood at the center again, not raising his voice. He didn't need to. It's not wrong. It's stolen. Find the hole. Arya slid into Station 5. The logs poured like rain on glass, steady, repetitive, hiding what mattered. She tuned her brain the way she had taught herself in sleepless years. Ignore the loud. Listen for the offbeat that there. Buried inside normal database syncs was an extra packet. Every hour on the 17th minute. Consistent, patient, greedy without looking greedy. She unmuted. Outbound stream hidden in legit DB syncs. Hourly at 17 past. Payload matches, R&D doc signatures. Damien's gaze landed on her. Destination. Masking as Chicago? It's not. The trail forks into an AWS bucket registered 2 weeks ago. Shell Company. Hale's handwriting all over it. The room stiffened at the name. Damien didn't. He only said, kill the bucket. Trace the lease. Freeze local account credentials. Arya's fingers moved fast enough to blur. The stream severed. The room cheered. But inside, she wasn't celebrating. She was bracing. Because now Damien had heard the name Hal from her mouth. And that meant she'd stepped closer to the edge of what she'd come here to do. After the incident closed, The team dispersed. Arya packed up, only to find Damien leaning on the frame of the door, watching her. "You knew it was Hales," he said. "Not a question." "I recognized the style," she replied. "Careful, measured." "Style doesn't show up in a log," he said. "Not unless you've stared at it before." Her stomach pulled tight. "You brought me in for pattern recognition." "I gave you a pattern." For a second, silence filled the space between them. Then Damien's mouth curved, almost but not quite a smile. "Fair." He pushed off the frame. "Walk with me." She did. Down glass halls humming with money and secrets, past murals of innovation, into a quiet lounge with floor-to-ceiling views of the bay. Damien folded his arms. "You're good. Too good to just be resumed deep." "What's your real story, Quinn?" "Arya Quinn is my real story," she said evenly. "You didn't answer." She held his stare. "Neither did you when the board asked why you pushed the Helios deal through in 1 week flat." The air sharpened. For a moment, she thought she'd gone too far. Then Damien exhaled, slow, like someone filing away a threat instead of reacting. "You've got teeth," he said. "Don't waste them on rumors." Noted. For the rest of the day, she kept her head down, scripts, audits, checklists. Yet Damien hovered in her periphery like static, a sharp voice in a meeting, a silhouette in the hall, an unreadable presence in the cafeteria at 6. She found herself alone in the lab, calibrating a monitoring tool. Rain slicked the windows. The city glowed below. Her code compiled with a low chime just as the door opened. Damien stepped in, jacket off, sleeves rolled. For once, he looked less like a press photo and more like a man who hadn't gone home in days. "You're still here," he said. "So, are you?" she replied. He gave a faint nod. "Seattle doesn't sleep. Neither do leaks." She smirked, despite herself. That almost sounded human. "Careful," he said. "I've got a reputation to uphold." For the first time, the air between them wasn't tension. It was something else. A spark, fragile and dangerous. Damien moved closer, scanning her screen. Behavioral model, trying to teach it what normal looks like, so it notices what doesn't. He leaned in, eyes flicking across the code. Close enough that she caught the faint scent of his Cohen cedar. Clean, restrained. "You're building it like it owes you money," he said, echoing his words from yesterday. Her pulse kicked. "Maybe it does." Their eyes met. Not as boss and employee, not as predator and infiltrator. Just a people who had seen enough battles to recognize the fire in each other. The silence stretched too long. Arya broke it. "You should let me finish. Unless you plan to help, help." Damien's tone was dry. "You'd hate my code, probably." This time, the corner of his mouth really did lift. A fraction, enough to shift the room's gravity. He straightened. "Don't stay too late. You either." He left. She stared at the door after it closed, heart still hammering, then turned back to the screen. The code blurred for a moment before she forced herself to focus, because sparks were dangerous. And in her game, fire could burn everything too soon. Later, as the office dimmed to after-hours silence, Arya pulled out her private notebook. Not digital, paper, ink. Easier to hide, harder to hack. She wrote 3 things. 217, Hailvault, Riderwolf, not enemy. The last line startled her. She stared at it, then shut the notebook hard enough to sting her fingers. Not enemy, Not yet. By Friday morning, the Wolf Dynamics building felt less like an office and more like a pressure chamber. Screens glowed brighter, voices carried sharper, and the air in the war room had the thickness of an approaching storm. The Tacoma acquisition wasn't dead yet, but the board was restless. Rumors whispered down the halls like static, leaked data, compliance failures, shareholder questions. For Arya, it was the first time she saw Damien not in control of the narrative. He paced, jacket off, tie loose, fielding simultaneous updates from finance, legal, and engineering. Calm on the surface, but the rhythm of his pen tapping against a notebook betrayed him. Arya sat at Station 5, pretending to focus on monitoring graphs while her ears picked up everything. Hale's name kept circling, sometimes spoken, sometimes avoided, but always there like a ghost everyone saw but no one acknowledged. At noon, Maya cornered Arya in the cafeteria line. "Careful today," she murmured while spooning soup into a bowl. "Careful of what?" "Your instincts." Maya's gaze didn't waver. "You see more than you should. Sometimes saying it out loud is a mistake." Arya bristled. "So I should stay quiet while the fox eats the hen." "Sometimes silence is strategy." Maya leaned closer. "And sometimes silence is survival." Arya didn't answer. She carried her tray to a corner table, appetite gone by mid-afternoon. The board call was underway. Damien led from the glass conference room, voice level, words clipped. Through the walls, Arya could only catch fragments, containment, due diligence, revised terms. Then it happened. One of the directors pressed Damien on the source of the data leak. He explained, measured, deliberate, and then Arya heard it, muffled through glass, but unmistakable. Our new hire flagged Hale's signature pattern. Her stomach dropped. He'd said her name. To the board, linked to Hale publicly. When the meeting ended, Arya didn't wait. She was standing outside the door as Damien stepped out. Expression unreadable. "You told them," she said. Damien arched a brow. "Told them what?" "That I flagged Hale's signature. That I," her voice cracked sharper than she intended. "You put me on record. You found it. I gave you credit." His tone was flat, but his eyes studied her like she was overreacting. "Credit." She almost laughed. "You put a target on me." "If Hale knows, he already knows," Damien cut in. "Trust me. You're safer inside this building than out there." Arya's pulse pounded. "You don't get to decide what's safe for me." For a moment, something flickered in his expression, guilt, maybe, or anger, but then the steel came back down. "Then don't make mistakes," he said, voice low, final, and he walked away. That night, Arya couldn't focus. She stayed at her desk long after the floor had emptied, staring at logs without seeing them. Her notebook lay open beside her, ink bleeding under her hand. 217. Hale Vault, Rider Wolf, not enemy. Wolf, using me. Her pen pressed too hard, tearing the page. 11. She finally shoved her laptop closed and walked to the elevator. The glass walls reflected her like a ghost, hair loose, eyes ringed dark. A woman carrying two identities and losing her balance. The elevator chimed. Inside was Damien, alone. They rode in silence to the lobby. At the doors, he spoke without looking at her. "You're angry, you think?" His jaw tightened. "I put you on record because I needed them to believe me. And because you earned it. Don't dress it up like a compliment," she shot back. "You used me." He turned to her then, eyes sharp, voice colder. You came here to work. I gave you work. If that feels like being used, maybe you're in the wrong building. The doors opened. The rain outside hissed against the pavement. Aria stepped out without another word. All weekend, Seattle rained. Aria hid in her apartment, blinds half closed, laptop humming with half-finished scans. She couldn't stop replaying the conversation, his flat tone, his dismissal, her anger by Sunday night. She'd decided distance. Do the job, keep her head down, stop letting Damien Wolf pull her into his orbit. But when Monday came, she walked into the war room and felt his eyes find her anyway. A half second, no more. Enough to make the crack in the glass widen. On Monday night, Aria sat cross-legged on her living room floor with the blinds half closed and the city smeared into neon stripes. Her wolf badge lay on the coffee table, face up, the photo looking back like a dare. Next to it, a flash drive the size of her thumb. The archives memo, the one stamped. Revised rider, attached with a last edit at 2:17 a.m., had lived in her head all weekend like a lodged shard. She hadn't opened the rider. She'd promised herself she wouldn't, not without chain of custody, not without Maya. That was the rule. That was the line. She also hadn't forgotten the look on Damien's face when he said, "Then don't make mistakes." At 12:11 a.m., Aria made one on purpose. Not the rider. Not anything that would break law or chain of custody. She packaged a sanitized set of facts even a public company's PR couldn't spin into confetti. Timestamps of suspicious vendor edits across several past deals, not just Tacoma. A pattern of friendly IP whitelists. A handful of board minute summaries where Helios appeared in the margins like a watermark. No proprietary code. No client names. Enough to raise questions a reporter could ask without blowing up a case in progress. She opened a burner, attached the packet, and wrote a single line to an investigative journalist she'd followed for years. Ask who edits at 2:17 a.m. why. When she hit send, her hands shook. Not from fear, from the feeling you get when you push a domino and hope the right ones fall. The story hit Wednesday, before the market opened. M&A red flags, after-hours edits, whitelists, and a familiar hedge fund shadow. No companies named, no lawyer bait. But the analysis was precise enough for anyone paying attention to recognize the shapes. Wolf Dynamics opened down 3% and slid to 5% before lunch. Not a rout. A warning. The war room filled with the sound of contained panic. Analysts triaged. Legal drafted. PR arranged statements that said nothing and still felt like too much. Damien moved through it like a fixed point. Voice calm, instructions crisp, sleeves rolled, jaw wired shut. He didn't look at Aria. By noon. The reporter posted a follow-up thread. Lightly redacted screenshots of logs with 2:17 timestamps and whitelists titled friendly_list.csv. Aria's stomach dropped. She hadn't included screenshots. She'd included descriptions. Someone else had sent the pictures, or the reporter had them. Already. Or both, her monitor blurred. She stood too fast and had to catch the desk. Maya's message popped on her screen. My office. Now, Maya's glass-walled room had blinds, and today they were shut. She didn't waste time. Did you talk to a reporter? Aria didn't flinch. I sent a general pattern. No code, no clients, no names. Enough to force daylight. Maya's lips pressed into a line that had nothing to do with lipstick. You don't get to force daylight in my shop. Arya held her ground. Board minutes with Ryder, attached at 2:17 a.m., aren't proprietary. They're rot. And the public deserves to know someone is gaming diligence. The public deserves a prosecution that sticks. Maya snapped back. And you just warned whoever did this to burn evidence. You think I don't know what 217 means? I was the one who pulled your archive read. That staggered Arya a half step. You why? Because I'd rather have you look at the truth than imagine it, Maya said, quieter. I thought you'd bring it to me. I brought it to the world. And that's how cases die, Maya said. Congratulations. Silence settled, heavy as rain. Is this where you fire me? Arya asked. No, Maya said. It's where I document that you acted outside protocol and where I tell you, as counsel and as someone who doesn't enjoy watching bright people immolate, to step back. Step back, Arya repeated, the words tasting like metal. The wolf you're hunting isn't the one who will bleed first, Maya said. You will, Arya swallowed. Noted, Maya's eyes softened by a millimeter. Go home, take 48 hours. If you ever decide you want to fight this the way it gets one, my door opens from the inside. At 4 p.m., the board convened an emergency call. Damien briefed, unfazed. They asked questions that sounded like statements. How exposed? What remedial actions? What did he know, and when? He answered in the same even tone he used ordering coffee. We've isolated the pattern the article references. It predates Tacoma. We're auditing all past deals. We're cooperating with regulators where appropriate. And then, because he never left a narrative to die without an alternative, he added, we have reason to believe a third-party advisor engineered access manipulations to extract value. Post-close, he didn't say Helios. He didn't say Hail. He didn't say Arya after the call. The building emptied with the hush of a place that knows it's being photographed. Arya found Damien in the dark of a conference room. The city drawn across the glass like a wire. He didn't turn when she spoke. I did it, she said. The first article. Descriptions only. Not the screenshots. I know, he said. She blinked. You wrote like you code. Clean. No adjectives you don't need. His reflection's mouth tilted. It wasn't a smile. She waited for the explosion. It didn't come. Instead, why? Arya gripped the back of a chair until her knuckles bleached. Because you used my name to prop your story in front of a board and then told me not to make mistakes. Because the only reason anyone listens is when they're forced to. Because if I sat in this building and watched another rider attached slide by without sunlight, I'd start to think we deserved it. He turned then, finally, and looked at her the way people look at cliffs. I put you on record so they'd listen when I said we had a problem. Not you, we. It felt like a target, she said. It was a shield, he said. My mistake was assuming you'd know the difference. They stared at each other across 3 feet and 5 years of opposite stories. I can't be your whistle and your wall, she said, voice low, steady. Pick one or lose both. Something in his face broke, not visibly, just below the surface where steel becomes fatigue. You're good, he said. You're also reckless. I learned from the best, she said. You raid. I light. His jaw worked. Do you want to resign? No, she said, surprising herself. I want to stop hating you. He flinched like she'd hit him with the honest thing. No one in his life ever threw. Take the 48, he said. Not because Maya said, because I'm asking you to. Does that come with a promise you won't turn me into an example? It comes with a promise I won't let anyone else try. She nodded. It didn't feel like forgiveness. It felt like a truce you make in a foxhole. She slid her badge from her lanyard, turned it once in her fingers, then set it on the table. 48, he stared at the rectangle of plastic like it might tell him how to fix the world. 48, he repeated. Aria didn't go back to her apartment. She drove south, past the stadiums, along the industrial spine to a small block where a hand-painted sign Bennett Repairs hung crooked over a roll-up door. Inside, the air smelled like solvent and possibility. Her father stood on a ladder, arm outstretched, steadying the sign's last screw. You're early, he said, grinning down at her. Got off work, she said, and it wasn't a lie. You look like you wrestled a thunderhead, he said, climbing down, wiping his hands. Close, she said, and leaned into his hug like a ledge. They ate bad pizza on upturned crates. He talked about orders and permits and the neighbor who kept borrowing his drill, as if it were a library. She watched the way Hope sat on his shoulders, lighter now, but still new enough to shift. When she left, the sign hung straight back in her apartment. Aria opened her notebook. 217, Hail Volt Rider Wolf, using me. She crossed it out, Wolf, shield. She added a question mark Maya. Inside, door she closed the book and turned off her phone. Outside, Seattle kept raining like it had all the time in the world. 40-8 hours. Then a choice. Go back and fight by Maya's rules, or keep lighting matches until something irrevocable burned across the city. In a dark office where the windows were mirrors, a man in shirt sleeves stared at a badge on a table like it was a verdict and picked up his phone anyway. Donovan, Damien said. Pull everything we have on Victor Hale, quiet, and send a car to Bennett Repairs at 8 tomorrow. No lights, no logo. Understood, Donovan said. Message from Ms. Quinn. Damien looked at the badge again. No, he said, then added, tell Maya she was right about the door. When he hung up, the building hummed in the way large machines do when they're pretending to sleep. Separation isn't always distance. Sometimes it's the quiet between two people who both did the thing they swore they wouldn't. Sometimes it's the space you need to come back different. By Thursday morning, Aria's badge still sat on her kitchen counter where she'd left it. The plastic rectangle looked harmless, but it weighed like a stone. 48 hours, Maya had said. 48 hours, Damien had repeated. Aria had promised herself she'd use that time to clear her head. Instead, she spent it scanning the news. The first article had quieted. Markets stabilized. But a second leak surfaced on a niche forum. Unredacted Wolf Helios term sheets, complete with signatures. Pages she had seen only inside the archive, and the timestamps to 17 a.m., again this time marked, in bold by the poster, like a taunt. Her hands froze on the keyboard. She hadn't leaked those. She hadn't touched them. But to anyone looking in from the outside, it would look like escalation. To anyone inside Wolf Dynamics, it would look like her. Friday, she broke the truce. She badged back into Wolf Tower before her 48 hours expired. Security scanned her like they'd been briefed. The guard's polite nod had an extra beat of hesitation. Inside, the atmosphere was brittle. Conversations cut short when she walked past. Analysts avoided her eyes. PR staff whispered at her desk. She opened her terminal. Access denied. Her staging keys had been revoked. Her phone buzzed. Maya, conference room, B. Now. Arya found Maya waiting with a closed laptop and an expression carved from stone. You broke your Maya said. You revoked my access. Arya shot back. Not me. Maya tapped the laptop. The board ordered it after the second leak. Arya's breath caught. I didn't send that. You know I didn't. I believe you. Maya's tone was steady, too steady. But belief isn't the same as proof. And perception is what eats reputations. Damien, Arya started, is in front of the board right now. Maya cut in, explaining why the analyst he vouched for isn't a liability. The word sliced. Liability. Arya sat, gripping the edge of the chair. So what? I'm the scapegoat. Maya sighed. I told you silence is survival. Instead, you broke protocol. And now you look guilty of the thing you swore you were fighting. Arya wanted to argue, to shout, but the weight of it was already pressing down. She had opened a door, and someone else had walked through with knives, that evening. Arya caught the tail end of the board session through the glass wall of the executive conference room. Damien stood alone at the head of the table, shoulders squared, face carved in calm. No evidence she accessed those files outside sanctioned review, he said, and her logs confirm it. If this leak came from inside Wolf, it wasn't her. A director leaned forward. So your position is that she's both indispensable and innocent. Convenient. Damien didn't blink. My position is that she's the only one who saw Hale's pattern before it burned us. If we discard her now, we're blind. Another director cut in. Or she's playing both sides. The words hit like shrapnel. Arya clenched her fists at her sides. Damien's voice dropped, lower, colder. If she were playing both sides, Hale wouldn't still be a step ahead. He'd be 2 steps gone. The directors conferred in murmurs. Damien's gaze flicked briefly to the glass. For a heartbeat, his eyes met Arya's. No expression, no signal, just iron dot. Then he turned back to the board. After the meeting, she waited outside his office. He arrived late, tie loosened, exhaustion in the set of his jaw. You defended me, she said. You heard. I also heard them say I could be playing both sides. Damien didn't answer right away. He poured a glass of water, drank half, set it down. Finally, I told them you weren't. Her chest tightened. But do you believe it? His silence lasted a beat too long. Long enough to wound Damien. He met her eyes. I want to. The words landed harder than accusation. They meant he didn't. Not fully. Not yet. She stepped back. Then maybe they're right. Maybe bringing me in was your mistake. He didn't stop her when she left. That night, Arya walked the city aimlessly. Past Pike Place. Past the ferries. Past bars spilling out laughter she couldn't touch. Every step felt like static. Her notebook stayed shut in her bag, but the words still burned in her head. 217, Hale Vault, Rider Wolf, Shield. Wolfed out by the time she got home. She wasn't sure which was worse, that the board doubted her, or that Damien did too. Saturday morning, her burner email pinged. A single message. From unknown, a Dropbox mail subject. To 17 body. You've seen the rider. You know who signed. Walk away or burn with them. Attached, a screenshot of the rider she hadn't opened. The digital ink glowed with a signature that made her stomach turn. Not Hale's, Damien Wolf's. The screenshot burned in Aria's mind all night. Damien's name at the bottom of a 2:17 a.m. rider, the digital scar that looked like proof, even if her gut screamed otherwise. By dawn, she hadn't slept. She sat at her kitchen table with cold coffee and her notebook open. Her pen hovered over the page, then wrote 3 words. Wolf signed it. The letters shook. She pressed the pen harder, carving the paper, as if force could make it true. But the harder part was the second thought. She couldn't silence. What if he didn't? At 9:12 a.m., her phone buzzed. A Wolf Dynamics emergency alert. Critical incident. Corporate network breach. All AppSec IR personnel to war room. Her badge was still suspended, but the message came to her personal number, not her work phone. Which meant Maya had pushed it, which meant they needed her. By 9:45, she was back inside Wolf Tower. The war room glowed blood-red with alerts. Analysts scrambled, voices overlapping. They're in finance, payroll exfiltrating, VPN endpoints compromised. Damien stood in the center, sleeves rolled, eyes flint. Trace the ingress. Don't talk. Don't panic. Move. Aria stepped in, heart pounding. Some analysts glanced at her, whispering. Damien looked up and, for the first time since the boardroom, his eyes locked onto hers with no shield in between. Station 5, he said. Not a question. A command. Her fingers hit the keyboard before her brain caught up. Logs poured in. A spearfish had landed overnight. Mails spoofed as HR updates, carrying a payload that burrowed into finance. From there, it pivoted into payroll, then into executive accounts. But something was wrong. The attacker wasn't moving like an outsider. The attacker already knew where to go. Insider access, Aria muttered. They're walking straight to vault keys. Show me, Damien said. She mirrored her screen to the wall. Red paths flared across finance servers, curving toward the sealed archive. Toward Wolf Helios, her blood iced. They want the rider, she whispered. Maya's voice cut in from the corner. If they get it, and it leaks unredacted, it's over. Not just Tacoma. Every deal since. Aria's hands blurred. She spun up containment scripts, walled off finance, rerouted traffic into a decoy environment. The attacker followed to smooth. Too confident. They know your playbook, Damien said. They know your playbook, Aria shot back. This is Hale's crew. They've been studying you for years. She set a trap in artificial vault, seeded with fake riders. Time stomps, dummy signatures. If the attacker took the bait, she could backtrace their command and control. Deploying Honeyvault, she said, hitting enter. On the screen, the attacker dove for it like a shark. Aria pounced. She backtrussed the beacon, caught its real IP before it cloaked. The map triangulated an office suite in Chicago. Damien's jaw tightened. Helios Capital. Hale, the room, went still. The name wasn't rumor anymore. It was on the wall, glowing red. For an hour, the war room fought like a unit. Firewalls closed, tunnels cut, finance scrubbed. The Honeyvault fed Hale's crew poisoned data, while Maya drafted legal holds for every byte. At 11:08 a.m., the breach was sealed. The war room exhaled. Damien didn't. He turned to Aria. Walk with me. He led her into the same glass lounge where their arguments had started. where their sparks had lit. The city stretched grey and wet behind him. "You saw a signature," he said. His voice was low, flat. "Mine," Arya swallowed. "I didn't go looking. It was sent to me, threatening me, telling me to walk away. And you believed it." "I don't know what to believe," she admitted, the words raw. For a long second, he just looked at her. Then he pulled a key from his pocket, slid it into a cabinet behind the lounge bar, and unlocked a safe. From inside, he withdrew a binder paper, not digital. Board minutes. Originals. He laid one page flat in front of her. The Wolf Helios rider. The signature line bore his name, but up close, the ink told a different story. "This is my father's signature," Damien said quietly. "Not mine. Victor Hale forged mine onto half a dozen deals when I was out of the country. I didn't see it until after the close. By then, the losses were buried, and the board wanted profit, not justice." Arya stared at the page. The flourish in the W off by half a degree. The spacing too tight. Her pattern-trained eyes picked up the flaws instantly. "It's not yours," she whispered. "No," he said, "but it's mine to carry. That's why the world thinks I signed it. Why Hale keeps baiting you with 217. He wants you doubting me." Her breath shuddered. The notebook in her bag, the line she'd written. Wolf signed it. Wrong, wrong all along. She looked up at him, eyes stinging. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you'd either believe me and stay, or you'd think I was lying and run. Either way, you'd stop fighting Hale." His voice broke for the first time. "And I need you in this fight." The air between them buzzed. Not static, not sparks. Something heavier. "I almost hated you," she said. "I almost let you," he replied. Her throat closed. She stepped back, but his hand caught hers before she could. Warm, steady, anchoring. "You don't have to trust me yet," he said. "But trust this. Hale's the one who signed away your father's work, not me." Her chest cracked open. The storm inside her, split rage, grief, relief. For the first time, she didn't pull away. By Monday morning, Wolf Tower had turned into a fortress. Security badges required double scans. Visitors were halted at the lobby. Employees whispered about subpoenas, regulators, and whether Wolf Dynamics could survive. Another week of scrutiny, but what no one whispered about because everyone was watching was the press conference scheduled. For noon, it wasn't in the Wolf playbook to air dirty laundry, but Hale's fingerprints were all over the breach, and the board needed reassurance. Damien had insisted on speaking himself. Maya had insisted on scripting every line that Arya had insisted on staying invisible. She sat in a back row of the press room as cameras were mounted and microphones tested. Her badge had been reinstated over the weekend, but her reputation hadn't. People still looked at her sideways, like she might be the one feeding stories to the reporters. At 11:59, Damien walked in. Dark suit, no tie, face carved from steel. The room went quiet. "Good afternoon," he said into the cluster of microphones. His voice was calm, deliberate. "Wolf Dynamics experienced a targeted attack last week. We identified and neutralized it in under 3 hours. No customer data was lost. The attempt was designed to exploit legacy acquisitions, specifically transactions influenced by Helios Capital and Victor Hale." Gasps rippled. Reporters scribbled. For the first time, Damien had said the name Hale out loud. "The signature riders you've seen in leaks. Damien continued. Forgeries, crafted by Helios to siphon value and cover their exits. We are cooperating fully with federal investigators, and we are building the case to prosecute. A hand shot up. Mr. Wolf, some sources say one of your own analysts leaked those riders. That she's working with Helios. Can you confirm? The air froze. Arya's stomach dropped. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Damien's eyes scanned the crowd, then landed directly on her in the back row. He didn't flinch. No, he said. Clear, final. Those reports are false. That analyst saved this company by identifying the breach pattern when no one else could. Without her, Hale would already own our vault. The room erupted with questions, but Arya barely heard them. Her chest burned. He hadn't hedged. He hadn't left space for doubt. He had defended her in front of the world. After the conference, chaos spilled into the corridors, chasing sound bites. Employees buzzing about Hale, analysts trading theories. Arya tried to slip out, unseen. Quinn. Damien's voice stopped her cold. He caught up in 2 long strides, security detail trailing like shadows. You didn't have to do that, she said. Still breathless. Yes, I did, he answered. They needed to hear it. You needed to hear it. Her throat tightened. You could have protected yourself by throwing me under the bus. I don't protect myself, he said flatly. I protect the truth. And the people who fight for it. For a second, the hallway felt too narrow, too crowded, with too much unsaid between them. Walk with me, he added. Softer, they ended up on the rooftop terrace, where Seattle stretched out under low clouds. The wind carried the smell of wet concrete and salt air. Damien leaned on the railing, hands loose at his sides. You were right, he said finally. I did use you, at first. I put you in front of the board because I needed your credibility. I didn't think about how it looked to you. Arya joined him, staring at the city. And I doubted you. I believed a screenshot over my own instincts. Screenshots lie, he said. People lie. Logs don't. You've always seen that. She gave a hollow laugh. So I'm a log reader with trust issues. Great resume, his mouth tilted, the closest thing to a smile she'd seen in weeks. You're more than that. You're the only one who doesn't flinch when you see how dirty the game gets. Silence stretched, filled only by the wind. Arya's hand rested on the railing. His was inches away. I don't know if I can forgive everything, she said quietly. But I don't want to keep hating you. His hand shifted, just enough for his fingers to brush hers. Warm, steady. Then don't, he said simply. Her chest clenched. For the first time since walking into Wolf Dynamics, she let herself breathe. That evening, the war room was calmer. Monitors glowed blue instead of red. The breach had been contained, the press spun. For now, Maya passed Arya a stack of reports. You've got Wolf's protection now. Don't waste it. Arya flipped through the pages. Evidence against Hale, patterns documented, time stamps preserved. It wasn't finished, but it was solid. Are we really going to nail him? Arya asked. Maya's eyes sharpened. If you and Wolf keep standing on the same side of the fire. Yes, for the first time. Arya believed it. Later, as the building emptied, Arya found herself back in the lounge overlooking Elliott Bay. Damien was there. Of course, jacket off, tie abandoned, shirt sleeves rolled, always working. You don't sleep, do you? She asked, stepping in. He glanced up. Sleep is overrated. So is martyrdom. That earned her a faint huff of amusement. Touché, she sat across from him. For a while, they didn't speak. Just shared the silence, the rain, the city. Finally, she said, if we win this, if Hale goes down, what then? Damien leaned back, eyes shadowed. Then maybe I stop being the man who signed things at 2:17 a.m. and me. She asked. His gaze held hers, steady. Then maybe you stop running. The space between them felt fragile, electric. For the first time, it didn't feel like predator and prey. It felt like equal scarred, stubborn, maybe broken, but facing the same direction. Arya's hand brushed the table. His moved toward it. But before their fingers met, her phone buzzed with an alert. Another incident. Another fire. They both pulled back. The spell broken. Duty calls, Damien said. Story of our lives, Arya replied, standing. Their eyes lingered, a heartbeat too long before they left the room, side by side. The subpoena arrived on a Tuesday, thin as a receipt and heavier than stone. Federal Grand Jury, Helios Capital, Victor Hale, Maya, laid it on the table. Clock's running. We play this clean. Damien nodded. We've got logs, the honey vault trap, the rider trail. Enough to make Hale sweat. Arya sat across from them, pen idle on her notepad. Sweat wasn't what she wanted. She wanted him gone. The hearing room was cold, fluorescent. Hale walked in, wearing a suit the color of money, his grin polished. Arya straightened. She'd practiced with Maya until her answers felt like bone. Explain the 217. Pattern, the attorney asked. She did. Timestamps, white lists, lazy arrogance, no embellishment. Just logs, the only truth she trusted, and Mr. Wolf's signature on the rider. Forgery, Arya said without hesitation. Anchor points and stroke weight don't match verified It's deliberate, consistent with Helios's methods. Maya slid the expert report forward. The objection from Hale's lawyer died on the table, for the first time. Hale's smile cracked. When it ended, Arya stepped into the hall. Damien was waiting. You were, he began. Boring, she offered. Perfect, he said. Her chest warmed. Despite the chill, over the next weeks dominoes toppled. A Helios engineer flipped. Then counsel. The phrase 217 edits turned into a Wall Street shorthand for fraud. Federal prosecutors moved in. Headlines followed. Victor Hale indicted. For Arya, it felt less like victory than air finally entering a sealed room. For Damien, it meant his father's forged signature no longer defined him. For both of them, it meant the storm had broken that evening. Arya found Damien on the terrace, tie in his pocket, sleeves rolled. The bay glowing under a bruised sky. It's done, she said softly. It started, he corrected. Justice moves slower than hate. She stepped beside him. Still, you're not the man who signed at 217. Not anymore. He looked at her, something unguarded flickering in his eyes. And you're not the girl who only wanted revenge. No, she admitted. I'm not. They stood in silence, the city sprawling below. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper at the top. Choice clause. 1 page, he said. No lawyers. After 30 days, either of us can walk away, but we write down the why, face to face. Arya's throat tightened. Not a contract of love, a promise of honesty, he said. Her hand shook as she signed first. Then today I choose to stay. He signed after her, bold strokes. And tomorrow we choose again. They didn't kiss right away. They didn't need to. The paper between them was heavier than any vow. When he finally leaned in, it wasn't spectacle. It was relief. The taste of rain, the quiet of a city finally listening. Weeks later, Hale was in custody. Bennett Repairs won its first big contract. Maya launched a fund for businesses burned by 217 at Wolf Tower. Aria and Damien hosted a hackathon called Ashes to Code. Kids, veterans, founders all building tools to catch the patterns no one had noticed before. On stage, Aria said only one line: "Pay attention to the boring things. That's where truth hides." The room applauded. Damien, standing beside her, didn't clap, he just looked at her like he finally saw the future. That night, on the rooftop under string lights and Seattle drizzle, they raised paper cups instead of champagne. "Today?" he asked. "Today," she echoed. "Not a perfect ending. But there's art. Sometimes love isn't about saving. It's about choosing again and again under the same rain that once blurred everything."